because we have a lot to talk about this week. I am still getting used to the day that I'm going to release these episodes. I think we'll do them on. I think we're gonna drop on Tuesday the full episode, and then I'm thinking a mini-sode will happen on Fridays. Is what I'm thinking, but it really doesn't matter what I think unless I do. And so my recording schedule is still a little bit TBD, but that's what I think we're going to do. So even though this is coming out on a Wednesday, don't get fucking used to it. We're going to do these on Tuesdays. I feel like Tuesday is where I need to be. I feel like we'll see you next Tuesday. If you get it, you get it. And that's just how it'll be from now on. But I digress. I don't know how I can digress when I haven't even gotten started, but here we are. It's a really special talent that I have. So I had initially thought about talking about skincare this week. You know, I had this erbium laser done almost a month ago. And I was finally feeling radiant and fresh and glowy, and I was feeling braggy, not the least bit humble. So I was going to talk about skincare and how that fits into the health industry and shit like that. And then I got a zit. Right here. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can see where I'm pointing. And just again, as a reminder, I'm filming these now because apparently I'm very into myself. God, just ignore it. I want to be available to you wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you are. What are you? So, God. Okay. But anyway, so I got a breakout, and then I was like, oh fuck no, I can't possibly in good confidence like talk about my skin health when it's clearly very, very unwell. So I wanted to pivot, and this week I decided, that's right, bitches, we're talking about food, nutrition, and diet. Now, it's a big topic, and it's one that I imagine we're going to revisit many times over. It is very meaty. Oh, yeah. Woo, love a good dad joke. But anyway, it's a big topic, so it won't be the last time we'll discuss it. And I actually have no idea what components I'm going to... I have a couple ideas of the things I'm going to talk about a few things in particular today. I don't know where else it's going to take us. We'll see. But if you engage with me on social media, then we might be able to dig a little more specific into some of the elements here. But before we get into the topic today, I want to talk about a few other things. That's kind of how this shtick rolls, okay? We have a topic, we get to it in the back half of the program. The first half, or first quadrant, if you will, is going to be about whatever the fuck I feel like just talking about. So I feel like, this is about to take a strange left turn, but I really feel as though I'd be remiss to not bring up or mention something about the Kobe Bryant death and his daughter, and just in general the tragic accident from Sunday. Now, I don't think it's a surprise to any one of you that listens or that at least knows me. I am not a sports fan, but clearly what happened, transcends all alignment you might have to a certain sports affiliate, whether you do, whether you don't, whatever. We're just talking about humanity at this point. And, despite the fact that I'm not a sports fan, nor do I really know that much about Kobe Bryant, aside from the fact that I know he's just a legendary basketball player, I think it's, obviously just so tragic whenever there's an accident, you're not expecting someone's death. But at the same time, just someone who's young, and not even mentioning the fact that there were children on board who lost their lives, naturally extremely young and way, way too early for anyone to lose their lives. But you think about someone who's healthy and active and accomplished, As far as I understand, he had retired from basketball and started making and venturing into other types of businesses. Won an Oscar last year. I mean, like, he was really just at the start of his next career. And I was, despite the fact that I, again, know very little about him, it really, really, like, triggered something in me. I think the way that it did most people. Like, you have in your mind, like, there are some people in your mind who just are immortal, right? They're never going to die. It's like Queen Elizabeth, the Pope, Mick Jagger, Madonna, right? Like, maybe your parents. These are people who in your mind are, like, immortal. They will not ever die. So, but the reality is that that's not true. And I think that you look at sports figures, these people who make a whole life around fitness and being great and doing things that no one else has ever done and achieving things you didn't know could be achieved, and you just don't think about their mortality. It was very, very sad, very tragic. I mean, that's just putting it really mildly. I can't even imagine what it would be like to be his wife or the other children left behind. On the helicopter, there was a couple and their daughter. So I don't know if that was the entire family. I don't know if she was, like, an only child, or even if she wasn't and they had siblings. Like, now that family doesn't have parents anymore. I mean, it just goes on and on about how fucking tragic the whole thing is. And obviously, like, my husband's not a huge basketball fan, but he certainly knows more about sports than I do. And also really just triggered in a way that I certainly didn't know I would feel. So I think it's, hopefully it's just an opportunity for us to have some perspective about our lives, what matters, and how fleeting it all is. So, that being said, I also believe you can't stay sad. Like, you can't just linger in it. It's not necessarily that you can't feel your feelings, but there's also a point at which it stops really being productive. And to me, I want to feel the opposite when I'm sad. So I want to go to laughter. And that's hopefully listening to me ramble on about trivial bullshit does provide a little bit of laughter and levity and amusement into your day. I hope so anyway. So let's move on, though, because like I said, I wanted to touch on it, but I didn't want to just focus on that today. Let's focus on some things that are a little bit lighter. Let's discuss, because after all, this is a wellness podcast, lest you forget, let's discuss all of the goss, the hot, nasty, sweaty dish of all the wellness bullshit that happened over the last few days. Okay, so we're going to start at the top with this, like, wellness expo or whatever bullshit thing that happened in London last week, at which Julianne Hough of your DWTS fame, / just annoying as fuck fame, you might know her better from that. She was face down on what looked like basically a chiropractor table while this man, this doctor, I'm using air quotes, this doctor ran his hands, hovering his hands over her spine and her neck, and then kind of like got really close to her rectum. Like, I feel as though he took his middle finger and index finger and then actually grazed her butthole and then mimed pulling something out of her butt, and then she just squealed and convulsed and danced and emoted verbally, and genuinely looked like she was experiencing some form of exorcism. And in fact, one of my faves, Jackie Schimmel. If you guys have not heard of Jackie Schimmel, what the fuck is wrong with you? But more importantly, you need to also listen to her podcast. She's been podcasting forever, and by forever I mean since 2015, when podcasting was invented. I don't know if that's true, but she has had a podcast for a very long time called The Bitch Bible. She's fucking hilarious, and she posted the video of this this hocus pocus and this fucking, orgasmic release from Julianne Hough. And the whole thing of this procedure, this fucking clown show, is that this guy allegedly can like move your own energy around in your body to release tension and pain and emotion and all this bullshit. I mean, look, we are definitely more than just our physical bodies, right? Like there is proof from a metaphysical and quantum physics type of perspective that we are energy, and it shoots and radiates beyond your flesh and your skin. Okay, fine. But who can see it? And how do you know which elements of the energy are bad and to move? And where do you move them? And what happens to the ones that you get rid of? Where does it go? I can't help but go back to a Sex and the City quote in one episode where I guess it's Carrie falls out of love or something with Big, and she poses the question, where does the love go? And so I couldn't help but wonder, where does the energy go? It's just fucking quack science. I mean, I think it's fascinating and I wish I believed it. Like, I'm not against, look, I will 100%, Katniss Everdeen, I volunteer as tribute, try that thing out. I would happily let this man pull fake farts out of my butthole or whatever he's doing and see what happens. I'd love to give it a try, but I'm very, very skeptical. It's just bullshit. Because it is. And so anyway, this video went viral. So Jackie Schimmel posted it. It went hugely viral on all these different national media outlets because it's fucking ridiculous. You have to watch it in case you haven't seen it. So that was the first showing of this man, this like chiropractor / witch doctor, for lack of a better word. Then 2 days later, I'm watching the GOOP Lab show on Netflix, which the GOOP Lab, just for those of you who have a life, is the business that Gwyneth Paltrow owns. It's called GOOP. That's her media brand, and they've expanded into wellness. They've expanded into skincare and retail. I mean, they're basically a lifestyle brand now. Started as an e-newsletter, and you guys, I have been getting that newsletter since it fucking started. I don't remember what year it was. It was like, I don't know, it was like before 2010. I've been receiving the Goop newsletter in which she recommended a $15,000 gold vibrator for a Christmas present one year. So it's very aspirational, but anyway, it's morphed through the years and they've become extremely controversial for their recommendations and point of views on everything from fitness to women's vaginal health to, $800 t-shirts, right? Like anytime they come up with stuff, it kind of like every now and again, they have something that's like really outlandish that they're recommending or that they're touting and people make fun of them. And that's the whole shtick. Well, now there's a show. It's 8 episodes, just 30 minutes each. It's a quick little watch and they're taking on different topics around wellness or, healing. And every episode is Gwyneth Paltrow and then her chief content officer sitting down with either a doctor or some kind of expert or figure leader type on the particular topic. And then their employees at Goop go and kind of act as like guinea pigs for a very loose research experiment to see if there's actually any real benefits to the thing that they're discussing. Okay, so examples include, just to start, Wim Hof. Most of you probably have heard of this guy, and if you haven't, it's very interesting. Look him up. My first exposure to Wim Hof was when Kyle and I went to a Tony Robbins seminar, and yes, we went to one, and it's fucking exhausting. I don't think I was in the right headspace to be there, quite frankly. It's very expensive and it's very exhausting because it's like that man doesn't stop for like a solid 12 hours. He'll just stand on stage and like pee in a catheter or something. So anyway, that was when I first heard about Wim Hof, and ever since then I've seen him more and more because he's becoming more and more known for his breathing technique and the way that he teaches people how to use their breath to actually heal themselves. Again, not without controversy, but he trains in extremely cold Arctic conditions, like literally will go to fucking the North Pole or Antarctica or somewhere fucking freezing and strip down to nothing practically. Literally, he's just like in a pair of briefs and swims and hikes and shit. He's crazy. But he does not experience frostbite or whatever else happens to you when you're freezing fucking cold, because he's like, I have trained myself to control my breath in such a way that it does not allow my body to be sensitive to my environment or something like that. Woo! I'm so smart. The other thing that's interesting about him is that he has allowed himself to be studied in labs. And don't quote me on this, but some like, Nordic country in Europe like did an experiment with him where they injected him with a bunch of toxins, like shit that would make you sick, like the flu or, herpes, I don't know. But they injected him with actual things, and they did that to see if he could prove his claims as true. That by controlling his breath, he could fight off these toxic cells and, create his own immunity, whatever. And he fucking did. And now, granted, I'm like, I don't really know how it works when you're immediately injected with shit like that. Like, you know how the flu goes around, but like just because it's flu season doesn't mean you're going to get sick. Or like you live with your spouse or a roommate or whatever, and they're sick, but just because they're sick doesn't mean you get sick. So I'm just kind of like, just because you get injected with the flu, does that mean you're gonna get the flu? Like, I don't know. I don't know enough about it, but it's very interesting nevertheless. I'm spending way too much time on this one guy. Point is, that was one episode, is about Wim Hof and his breathing technique. And then there's another episode about psychic mediums and this woman who actually teaches people how to tap into their own psychic abilities. And it was really interesting because one of the girls who allegedly does not know anything about being a psychic and didn't know anything about the girl that she was doing a quote reading of, got it like so fucking right. Like it was, you never know, right? Like I'm gullible when it comes to psychics. I'm not calling into psychic lines, and I've never gotten a psychic reading, but I'm very gullible when I watch them. There's like some really good ones out there. So who knows if it's true. But one of the other episodes, so the whole thing is like, this is the GOOP Lab. They're showing all these things, and I'm like sitting there and I am eating this shit up, like someone who's just on day 31 of their whole 30. I am fucking gorging on anything I can get my hands on that Gwyneth Paltrow wants to feed me in my eyes and my brain. I love her, okay? And I know that's a very controversial point of view, but I love that bitch. I'll say this. She knows what she's doing. She knows what she's doing, okay? I think she's got a great sense of humor. I think she is very knowledgeable. Maybe it's specific to the knowledge that works for her, but I do think she is, kind of very willing to embrace ideas and concepts. I think that's a great quality about a person. Like she's not shut off to new ideas. That's great. I think she's wonderful. And I actually, when I was younger, hated her. I think a lot of people hated her and or still do. I think it's gotten much stronger through the Goop years. I hated her pre-Goop, and then Goop made me love her. So I don't know what that says about me. But do you know who's actually very goopy? Is Kyle. Kyle, so here's why. All the shit that she talks about, I mean, minus anything related to a woman's reproductive system, all these like health initiatives and ideas or experience, whatever, these things are things that Kyle almost always is on the up and up about, like before anyone. Most of my, not all, but like probably like 65-70% of any and everything I know about health is stuff I learned from Kyle. He's so goopy, he's so trendy. I think Kyle should start his own newsletter. We'll call it Kai or Koo. We'll work on a name, but yeah. So anyway, so I love Gwyneth Paltrow. One of the other episodes, though, in the GOOP Lab series features this man, and I cannot for the life of me remember his name. I think his name is like Dr. Chris something. Chris Martin. No, it's not. But it's like something Dr. Chris. I don't know. But he originally started his training as a chiropractor. And then one day he was like, you know what? There's just not enough money in chiropractic practice, so I'm going to become a quack. He didn't say that, and I'm not sure if that's actually part of his autobiography. However, that's my extrapolation of events. But one way or the other, he taps into this thing of like, let me clean your chakras and your energies. And turns out, but my BFF Gwynny has been seeing this guy for years. I mean, obviously Julianne Hough didn't just like go out and find this guy. She's a hanger-oner. You know, she's I want to say a lackey, but I don't think that's the right word. Point being, she's not first to the party, okay? She's no trendsetter. She's no GP. So GP has been doing this thing for years and speaks very highly of the guy. So they bring him in and they do the thing with a few GOOP staffers. I keep using air quotes. I don't know why I'm saying it's like they are actually GOOP staffers. It's not alleged. So they do the thing and it's like one. And here's where it's like there's an element of like, am I the asshole? Because there's points where you're like, oh, he's got to be doing something. So they're face down, kind of like when you're on a massage table. They cannot see unless they have weird cameras or are being told something behind the camera. Maybe that's it. Maybe they're being told bullshit. I don't know. But one way or the other, it appears as though they cannot see or hear anything that's happening. I mean, there's not much to hear. He's just kind of waving his hands over top like he's casting a spell. And as he moves his hand, like a lot of people, allegedly, have the reaction of like convulsing or twitching or shaking or stretching and all this shit. So like as he's moving his hand over these people's backs, that's where they have a movement, right? And so I'm like, how would they know to lift their hips, for example, when his hand is hovering over their hips? Like, that was the one part where I'm like, well, is there something to it? And then I realized, you're a fucking idiot, Melissa. It's all for show. But there are moments where it's like, it looks like magic, and I want to believe it, because how neat would magic be? So it was just funny because it had literally just blown up. Like, the internet was out of its mind about this witch doctor, and I'm just making sure my video is still going. Okay, so everybody was out of control, and then all of a sudden here we are, I'm watching Goop, and it's just off the rails. So that was whatever, interesting, or just a thing that happened without any interest whatsoever. There was another very interesting episode, though, of the GOOP Lab show, and it had to do with women and their vulvas. And yeah, ladies, we're talking about your vagina, but we're not, you know? And I feel, listen, what I mean is, when we refer to vaginas, like most of the time, we're referring to a woman's private parts, right? The part that you put your panties on top of is how, myself included, refer to that area, vagina. Or if you're 8, virgina. So, turns out we're wrong. The vagina is simply the birth canal, okay? Here's an anatomy lesson. Anatomy with a dumbass. So, dumbatomy is what we'll call it. So, the part that you see, the body, the skin, the lips, the sex parts, that's your vulva, okay? Wow. The thing is even Gwyneth didn't realize a difference, and that bitch has had 2 babies, you know? I feel like when you get pregnant and actually give birth, that at that point you kind of have to know about your anatomy as a woman, that it's like important to know by then. I have the excuse of like not having had any children or any reproductive things and needs, and so like I don't know what my parts are called, but it's a real sad reality. Like us as women, as a general population, the majority of us don't actually know what the parts are called. And I would say, to some extent, it's like, yeah, but there's so many. Like, ugh, it's just so much to remember. It's like we already have to remember enough bullshit. Why more? You just need to know where the clitoris is, and then that's it. And then where to put a tampon. Those are the two things that are the most important as a lady, quite frankly. But what was I getting at here? I remember. So this episode features a woman who is like 90, but she looks and talks and acts like a young, spry 65. I mean, I was fucking amazed when they said that she was like 90. Now, maybe they were joking, and I'm taking it too literal, but actually, I do think she might have. I do think she is in her 90s, because they talked about how she kind of got started with this like her education and teaching methodology in the 70s, and she was like in her 40s at that point. So yeah, that bitch is like 90. Fuck, good for her. Well, she's got that kind of like that smoker's kind of like harsh. Ooh, that hurts. I don't know if I can keep that up, but that like. She's lived a life. She smokes a cig. She drinks a bourbon. She yells at a young man, and that's how she starts her day. She sounds like that. So she helps women understand their sex parts and make sure that they know how to give themselves an orgasm. Because in the words of RuPaul, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love anyone else? Can I get an amen? So her whole thinking and methodology is that, like, you should be able to give yourself an orgasm, because then you'll do a better job of enjoying sex with your partner. Because if you know how you like to get off, then you can tell them, and so whatever. And in this episode, it was like... So I'm covering my face because I can't even look at my own self as I say this, because it was like so cringy. But at the same time, it was fascinating and I think important, because this 90-year-old lady, again, very spry, very, very edgy, like she's fine. She can get around without assistance. However, she does have a little lady that's some assistant kind of thing to her, like the president of her foundation or whatever. And this woman's probably in her 40s. So they're on camera and they're explaining how the idea of women and their anatomy has been wildly misrepresented and misunderstood because of the way that women are portrayed through pornography, which is how, when people think about like sex outside of the sex that they are having with their partner or themselves, those are the images that people know of sex, is through porn. And they talk about how the women in porn are, at least women that are professional, I suppose, are not necessarily built and shaped like other women, like regular women. They have surgeries, or they're, bleaching their buttholes, all that stuff. And they're also faking their orgasms a lot. So they're talking about how the average person doesn't really have a good model of what a real woman's vulva looks like, or an orgasm looks like, because a lot of women fake them, and even if they're not faking them, their reactions are modeled after pornographic representations of these things. And so they felt very passionate about showing the GOOP Lab audience, viewers, like me and you, what it actually looks like when a real woman has a real orgasm. It's funny because I'm a woman, like I ought to know what it looks like. And I do, but for myself or whatever. But I still was like, oh, I got to see this. So earlier in the episode, they show you these close-ups. Like literally all you see is just this little like Instagram perfect square of a very close-up vulva. The lips, the clitoris, all the parts. And it was shocking and illuminating for me. But then later in the episode, you actually watch this woman, this younger lady, the 40-year-old lady, and then the 90-year-old lady standing over her, coaching her through masturbation of herself. There's a camera crew, and they're all filming it, and I'm just like, wow, I hope those people got paid a little extra that day. Or maybe they didn't get paid at all. Maybe they're like, you know what, I'm going to do this for free. I just got to see this. So this woman is just like using her toy and kind of rolling her hips, and she has a very, chill orgasm. It was it was so simple, but it was fascinating. So if you watch nothing else from the entire GOOP Lab special, I would recommend the vulva episode. And, that's it. That's all I have on that topic. I wish I could end that with like some kind of zinger, but I don't think I can. This feels like a good time to plug in a little ad, so we'll do that. Okay, we're back. It's funny because on the YouTube, I don't have an ad. So that's just dead air right there. But, all right, so let's talk about, we've talked about vulvas and then vaginas and convulsing and witch doctors. We can now move on to our real topic today. The real topic today is food, nutrition, and diet. Now, it's a loaded topic. We are not going to get through all of it. And let me just make sure that everyone understands and we're all on the same page. I am a high-functioning idiot. I may as well be a witch doctor because I have zero qualifications in any way about nutrition or health and wellness. So you're like, well, let me turn this podcast off real quick. I'm nobody except for I am, like I said, I'm a GPer. I'm goopy. I gotta come up with my own little like stupid name for my brand, which is not a thing. But regardless, like I have an active vested interest in health, wellness, and I've tried things, I've read certain things, and I've listened to a lot of others. As we all know, I do not like reading. I'm a lazy learner, and I like to learn through people telling me things. So that's why I do so well with podcasts and ebooks. So I get my information from all kinds of places, but largely it's mostly just based on my personal experience. So take that with a million grains of salt, maybe a dash of pepper, a little everything but the bagel seasoning, a little red pepper flake, a dash will do ya. But take it for what it's worth because it ain't worth much. But with that disclaimer out of the way, I am going to talk to you a little about my personal food philosophy and my experience and what I observe with my clients because I own a fitness studio and all that shit. Okay, so we'll start sort of at the beginning, I guess. I mean, I never had like I was never like an overweight child. But I also wasn't a kid that was like super duper skinny and scrawny. Like I didn't have that experience either. I was a normal child. One summer, I think it was like 4th grade to 5th grade, I went and spent some time with my grandmother who lives in Ohio, and the woman let me drink milkshakes every day for 2 weeks straight. And I came back and I was definitely a little soft and a little pudgy. But that was probably like, as a child, my only little like phase. But that being said, pretty early on, I started being very preoccupied with my body. And it started at an early age. Like I had insecurities about my body starting at 10 years old, like 5th grade. Basically around the time that you start to, I started to develop, I think I was wearing a training bra in 5th grade. By the time I was in 6th grade, full boobs, same boobs that I have today. So like around the time my body started to change, that was when I started to be really insecure, thinking I was fat. It didn't help that I am extremely pale. I don't even know if you can call me pale. See-through is more like it. I'm translucent. So I was teased about that a lot as a child, and that coupled with being like an early developer, I just never really felt I really have struggled to feel comfortable in my body. And so as I got older and, in my teen years, and I started to understand what diets were and that all this shit, Atkins was becoming very popular when I was in high school. It was the late 90s. Like, what do you want? So my mom had gained a little bit of weight. She'd gone through an early menopause, and it fucked up her hormones on top of an undiagnosed gluten sensitivity that she has. So she had started to gain weight around the time I was like 15. And she wanted to go on a diet, a proper diet. And I'm going to use the term diet in two ways here. I'm going to talk about a diet as in like the diet that you eat, your day-to-day diet, the way you eat. But I'm also going to refer to diets, which are those short-term weight loss focused ways of eating. So we wanted to go on that kind of a diet where we were going to do Atkins and we were going to lose weight. And at that point, I would say, I guess I was like my body was continuing to change and I was becoming a woman. Little did we know it was going to be actually turning into a gay man. But that's when I started to just gain a little of my weight myself. So we did Atkins. My metabolism was fucking bomb. And within a summer, I lost probably maybe 10 pounds. I didn't have a ton of weight to lose. But so I was all skinny again for the end of high school. But it was then that I started understanding food nutrition, and by understanding, I don't mean I was good at it. I just became aware. I became aware of reading the nutrition facts on labels and understanding what carbohydrates were to some extent, understanding that fat was not bad. So from an early age, I actually feel like I knew more than the average person my age about nutrition, purely from the standpoint that low fat is not good, right? And that fat can be good and that there are certain carbohydrates to avoid and sugar is bad. So I had that understanding fairly early on. Not that that's good or bad, just I did. And then in college, I gained the sophomore 20. Fuck the freshman 15. I put on weight sophomore year. I was very unhappy. I was struggling a lot. I don't know why. It was hard for me on my sophomore year, but I just felt really sad sophomore year. I don't know. Looking back, maybe I had a little bit of depression. I don't know. I felt really lonely, and I was out of state. Freshman year was a ton of shit, and I had made a lot of friends in my dorm. Sophomore year was different. I was living alone, and it was a bunch of shit. So I gained a lot of weight that year. I came home for the summer. My mom looked at me at the beginning of the summer, and she gave me a very big, tough love pill, and she was like, okay, this summer you're going to lose that weight. And I was like, cool, because I really wanted to. So I don't even remember. I think I just kind of went back to doing a low carb style diet and portion control for sure. You know what I actually was doing? I was eating lean cuisines. Ooh, yikes. I can't even imagine. But at that point in time, I was trying to do calorie restriction, and I just didn't think about processed foods like that. To me, processed foods were chips and Little Debbie cakes, that to me was processed food. I didn't think that frozen food that came in a tray and was a meal and it had a vegetable, a snow pea and a chopped carrot. I thought that would be fine. And because it was under 300 calories, that's great. But regardless, that worked for me. And so by the time I went back for my junior year, I was hot again. So, but it didn't stop me from having issues with my body, how I looked, how I felt. The long and short of it is, I've pretty much always felt like I was fat, okay? And I hate to admit that, but it's the truth. It is my truth. I'm standing in it. I'm living in it. I'm throwing it up. I'm bringing it to the hip. Kenergy, Kenergy, Kenergy. That's a Julianne Hough reference. Go watch it. You just need it in your life. But I continue to struggle with this concept, but we'll come back to that. So I just always had this problem in my mind with what I looked like physically. My hips were too big, my thighs were too big, my belly was way too soft. I've always been able to criticize my own body way worse than anybody else. There's probably nothing you could say to me about my body that I haven't already said to myself in a far meaner way. So despite whatever my weight was, and I've looked great, you know, it's not, again, I've never really had this like horrible issue with my weight or anything. It's just in your head. So by the time I was out of college and I was finally like really responsible for feeding myself, no longer simply dependent on the little plastic ID card that I got to just run up a full tab at every fucking dining hall in college or any market that I could get my hands on, I had to start thinking about how I wanted to feed myself. So I didn't really get the hang of it until probably around like 25, 26. I was already dating, and we weren't living together, but I was dating Kyle at this point, and he had discovered CrossFit. So like I said, he's very goopy. He's like the first to the newest trends. This would have been, let's see. This would have been 2009, 2010, the same time I was subscribing to the Goop newsletter, first edition. Hold on, I need some water, one sec. Okay, refreshed. So he discovered CrossFit. And at the same time, CrossFit was still relatively like not well known, not well understood, but they were talking about the paleo diet. They had just sort of recently started to shift from the zone, which is basically like a macros style diet. Thank God, because I was like, I don't know how to make sense of that. That sounds like a lot of math. Macros, more like math rows. That's a bad one. So he was like all about wanting to eat in a paleo diet. And like pretty much everyone at that time, I had no idea what that was. When he explained to me, it is meats, vegetables, some fruit, some nuts. Like, I was like, okay, I get it. So basically nothing. Like I was like, how do you eat on that? Again, having had my experience in high school with carbohydrate restriction and doing Atkins, I sort of understood it. And I kind of was comparing it to that. That is a bit of a mistake to assume it's low carb. It's naturally low on processed carbohydrates or non-existent on processed carbohydrates and low on sugar, which has a lot of carbohydrates. But just because you're eating paleo doesn't mean you're doing low carb, whatever. You just take it. Just believe me. Trust me, as they say, right before they fucking lie to you. But anyway, I was intrigued. And again, because I've always felt fat, even though I fucking wasn't, I was like, great, I want to learn about this. But it started off very boring for me because the way that Kyle explained it to me was basically like, you have to eat plain meat, like a grilled chicken breast, and plain vegetables, steamed broccoli. And I kid you not, because he had to cook for himself. He can cook. He's not an interesting cook, but he is capable of making food correctly. Just not the kind of food I'm interested in eating, you know? So what I saw him making for himself, this was before we lived together. So when he would make dinner, if I was like staying the night or hanging out, he would make a pork chop and then literally steam broccoli or like roast asparagus. And all it took was me to eat like 2 meals like that. And I was like, I fucking hate this. I'll never be able to eat this way. But I did do it. And I wrestled with it for like a few months and I got some good results. But that was when I started like trying to get more creative in the kitchen, and I had to figure it out, which is more about my journey cooking. So we'll table that. But essentially what that did was open up my mind to a different philosophy around food and nutrition. Because up to that point, I was, again, familiar with the role that sugar could play in your diet. And so trying to reduce that, despite the fact that I have a massive sweet tooth, despite the fact that my fucking blog and my entire internet existence is called Cupcakes, OMG. I was like, okay, I know sugar's bad, but I wanted to understand more about why eating the way that our ancestors did, which is like kind of the thread line through the paleo diet. I wanted to understand like why that was so important. And over the last decade, because it's really been a decade that we've been doing this as a lifestyle, I've learned many different things about why this is a diet in the sense of like a lifestyle, a way of eating, that any and everyone can benefit from. But it's morphed a lot for us over the years. We had started for several years. Kyle wanted to be very strict on this. He didn't want to, I mean, he likes to eat cheese, but he was like, we're not going to eat cheese. And then I was like, well, then we're not going to be together. Divorce. But like, that's always been a hard one because, you know, if you want to be really strict, the paleo, you know, diehards would have you believe that you cannot have dairy in any form, including cheese or milk or whatever. Likewise, really strict paleo philosophers believe you cannot have any sweeteners, even if they are natural, like maple syrup or honey. Other people say that white potatoes are really bad, and that rice is no good. I mean, so there's all these rules that you could get really, really caught up in if you wanted to. But in my experience, restriction does not work well for me. There are two types of people in the world. The ones that entertain and the ones that observe. Whoa, yikes. I do not do a very good Britney Spears impression. I think we've all just learned that. But I do a fairly good Cher impression. And I think you've also learned that. But back to what I was saying. There are two types of people in this world. You have people when it comes to the way they can approach their lifestyle of how they eat. You can either be what's called an abstainer. Oh wait, no, I am a restrictor. Okay, whatever. You can either be an abstainer, which means you're the type of person who needs to cut something out completely. If you are around it, you can't control yourself. I mean, it just describes every guy I've ever dated. They can't control themselves, right? I wish you could see me right now and all my no makeup pimple on my face. Unkempt hair, glory. Maybe you are seeing me, and it's hilarious. So abstainers are the people who will simply just do without, out of sight, out of mind. So like if you are going to go for a cleanup in your diet, you're going to say, I know that I can't have those chocolate chips in my pantry because if I have a moment of weakness, I'm going to go for them, right? That's an abstainer. Then on the other hand, you have the people who are not restrictors, my bad, that was the wrong term. They're moderators, and that's pretty much what it sounds like. These are people who like to do things in moderation, where if you were to take something away from them, then that is all they want, okay? Again, also like the guys I dated. If you take something from a person, like you say you can no longer eat pasta, then a moderator is the type of person who would only think about having pasta and then get weak and then go fucking ham on pasta when they have a moment of weakness or they come off of their diet for a day, whatever. So moderators are the people who can manage healthy amounts of things that are maybe not ideal in their diet, but they don't need that. They do better to have them in small quantities versus not having them at all. Okay. So it's important to know which type you are, because I'd like to be an abstainer. I really would. And I used to think that I was, but what I've learned about myself is I'm definitely not good at that. I'm much more of a moderator. And so that's why the lifestyle that we live around our diet of eating, quote, paleo, which I don't really call it that anymore, but for lack of a better term, we are more moderators now. Now, there are certain times where I'll choose to avoid certain things that I know maybe come with higher calorie or more calories in them, right? But like, generally speaking, we will occasionally use cheese in a recipe. Or occasionally, I will put maple syrup in something. Or from time to time, we will have some rice or quinoa or brown rice-based pasta or something like that. Because the whole thing is that if you want it to be a lifestyle, it needs to do something you can do for your fucking life, you know? And like, knock on wood, I'm knocking, where's wood? I have no wood in here. Here, the branch of this rose counts. Knock on wood. Oh wait, my chair has, there it is, knock on wood. We all have a long life ahead of us, okay? So if you are going to make a change for good, in your diet, then it needs to be something you can do long term. So figuring out which one you are to start is a really good place. And it may take time, right? Like I said, I used to think I was an abstainer. I used to think, okay, well, I'm just going to cut it out forever. It just didn't work for me. It doesn't mean it doesn't work for some people, but it doesn't work for me. Now, there is a time and a place to abstain from certain foods. Like a lot of people are wrestling with food allergies or sensitivities to foods, and they don't know it because they've just felt like shit their whole lives, or they blame it on how they feel on other things. And in reality, it might be that they have an egg allergy. Yeah, fucking eggs, man. It's a thing. Yeah, I can't imagine. It sucks if you have an egg allergy or an egg sensitivity. It doesn't even have to go so far as to be a full-blown allergy. You could just get like kind of fucking rashy if you have eggs. Or people that have dairy sensitivities, or fucking some people have problems with tomatoes. Like there are elimination diets which are very, very limited, because it's designed to help you figure out what the foods, how certain foods may trigger you. And I've done these. I have not found that my body has any crazy reactions to any specific types of food. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have them, but nothing makes me feel terrible except for when I eat muffins and lasagna my whole life. I'm convinced all food is terrible. And that's a Parks and Recreation quote for your reference. But, you know, aside from when I just eat crap that would make anybody feel pretty bad, I don't feel as though I have those issues, so I feel very fortunate in that way. But that's when an elimination diet and an abstaining kind of approach can be really useful. So figure out what's right for you. That's number one thing. But number two, okay, so where I am now in my food journey, my philosophy around nutrition is more rooted in just eating real food. The best place to point you would be like Michael Pollan. And I know more recently he's been a little bit edgy. I think he's become a little more of an outspoken proponent of veganism. I think maybe I might be misquoting that. You know, but he's very much focused on plant-based nutrition. But his first book, or maybe it wasn't his first book. He has a book called The Omnivore's Dilemma, which I actually did read. It's been many years, but I read it with my own fucking eyes. He's got another one that's called, something food. But you can look him up. He's very known in the world. But it was when I started listening to Michael Pollan that I started caring a lot about the quality of my food, and eating very real food. So you can get caught up in any fucking diet that you want. You can do paleo, you can do keto, you can do Weight Watchers, you can do vegan, you can do whatever you want. And you will find almost immediately that, you know, there are greedy motherfuckers on Wall Street who are creating processed foods targeted and marketed to people who are looking for nutrition under the guise of a food diet name. Paleo, keto, vegan. Just go to Whole Foods, go to Trader Joe's, walk the fucking aisles, look for paleo ketchup. It's out there. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's just, you know. But like paleo cookies. Spoiler alert, not a thing. They're just fucking cookies made with arguably healthier ingredients, but still nevertheless sugar and processed shit. So, I got me very angry and agitated. Woo! Did not expect that. But the point is, there's someone looking to make a buck off of the diet industry. It is a billion, possibly $1 trillion industry for all I know, between diets and fitness for sure. It is a big fucking industry and everyone wants to take your money. So it doesn't matter what kind of approach to eating you want to take. At the end of the day, what's most important is that you're eating real food, actual food, that you can point out the ingredients and you know what those things are and you mostly know how to pronounce them. There's a few weird ones out there, but you know, mostly you get it and you know what they are. So that's been my approach these last several years. I'm very interested in making sure when I buy my vegetables that I'm buying organic, and not simply because Gwyneth Paltrow told me to, but because I am trying to ensure that we're not ingesting, you know, chemicals that we don't need. Now, you can get really in the weeds, no pun intended, about organic vegetables and fruits. We had a very interesting dinner at this amazing restaurant last year here in Houston called Indigo. And it's a small, like, not family style. It's like a small restaurant where there's only like 8 seats. The reservations go really quick, and it's this chef here, born and raised in Houston. He's got all kinds of fancy accolades, but now he has his own restaurant, and it's very much focused on the history of like African Americans and their relationship to agriculture and food and their history. So while you're sitting there, each course you're getting a lesson to some extent, and the inspiration of this dish and its role and how it was influenced by African American history. And what was very interesting and very discouraging that we learned at this dinner was that oftentimes the organic produce that you're buying at like Whole Foods is being raised by or is grown, yes, in organic farms, but by prisoners. And so it's not funny, but I'm like, what the fuck? Even our vegetables can't be left alone. But like prisoners, especially, there's a lot of young black men incarcerated for all kinds of reasons. I'm not here to debate the jail system or whatever. But like, point being, he compared it to modern day slavery. These people have to grow vegetables and fruits and they don't get to eat them. Now, if you're a fucking murderer or a pedophile, goddamn right you don't get to eat them. You shouldn't be able to eat, period, forever. The end. Goodbye. Get the fuck out of here. But, petty drug theft, petty drug crime, that kind of thing, that's where it gets a little dicey, but that's a different issue. Again, we're not going there. But yikes, we're so off track. But I thought that was an interesting element. So we do try to eat organic vegetables and fruits. I think even better is when you can do a CSA, when it's coming from a farm and you know the farmer. The issue is I've yet to find something like that here where we're living that is organic. You can find plenty of farms that you can buy locally from, but that does not mean that the produce is organic. So it's kind of like the lesser of two evils. What do you want, But if you are lucky enough to live in a place where you have access to great farmers markets or you can participate in a CSA, then you should absolutely do those things, because not only are you going to get way better product and quality and diversity in your diet, which is another important element to nutrition and health, but you're also going to be supporting your local economy and farmers, and they need that and they deserve that. So that became a priority, along with, of course, like knowing we eat meat and we eat meat products. So I very much care about the quality of my meat that I'm eating. I do not shop at regular grocery stores for meat. The one exception is I do occasionally buy sausage at Whole Foods because I go through that really quickly. But otherwise, all of our meat we buy from Butcher Box, which is like sourcing organic and grass-fed, free range, wild caught. Like, those are the words that matter. Organic or not, if you're getting something that is like a grass-fed burger, you actually are getting a better product than if you're just getting organic. Because organic means that those cows are being fed organic grain and shit. They're being fed, first of all. So no longer is that natural, because you don't feed cows. Like, cows fucking eat grass. That's it. There's a whole ecosystem about it. So organic or not, like, the grass is pretty fucking organic, Same with chicken. Chickens should be free range. And there's so many things. It's so hard. It's like you want to be educated, but then there's also so many limitations, because it's like, well, how much space do they have to graze? It's like, well, you can be considered free range if you get 1 square foot. And it's like, well, that's not really a lot for a chicken. So it's really fucking hard to do a good job. I do think that is worth pointing out. Like, do your best, right? But as much as you can, those are the kinds of words, if you're going to eat animal products, that you should be looking for. And that's what we really care about. So we care about the quality of the food, where it's coming from, just as much as what we're consuming. But here is the really big thing that has become far more important to me over the last like 6 or 7 months. It's more recent. I mean, it's always been a thing for me, but I think I've been prioritizing it a lot more recently. And that is fucking eating vegetables. So this is where I really wanted to spend some time. Vegetables are it, man. They are sexy. Vegetables are the new Kardashian, okay? If you think they're sexy, I don't know. Vegetables are the new Rod Stewart for some of you weirdos out there. So, a lot of people that started off as like really strong paleo practitioners have started to move more toward this concept of getting a lot of vegetables and to some extent fruit into your diet. What seems like has happened because of this paleo and keto movement is that people have really, and I think Americans have always done this, but like have really prioritized what the role of meat is in their diet. And while meat and protein are key and great things to include in your diet, what's happening is people are not understanding the role of vegetables and how that factors into their diet. The other thing about vegetables here is you can eat meat and still be eating a plant-based diet. You know, everyone's hearing plant-based and it's great. You can cure cancer, you can bring your cholesterol down, blah, blah, blah. You know, yeah, the more vegetables that you put into your diet, probably for most people, the more healthy you will be. I mean, I'm making a very generic statement, but I don't think anyone's really going to argue with including more vegetables in your diet as a bad thing, right? It's a good thing. But when people say, oh, I want to have a plant-based diet, it's like people seem to think the only option for that is to be a vegan, you know, maybe a vegetarian. And that is simply not true. I eat meat at almost every meal, not every meal, but I would say about 75, 80% of my meals, there's meat or some kind of animal product. But I consider how I eat to be a plant-based diet. That's because I eat a vegetable with every single meal. And I am eating 3 meals a day when I'm taking care of myself. There are days where I don't get it fucking done and I'm not feeling great about that, but it happens. Like, I'm just being very authentic with you. But I eat 3 meals a day. So a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner. And I really try to avoid snacking, again, when I'm taking great care of myself. Because I try to eat enough at each meal that I don't need a snack. But breakfast, including a real vegetable, is I think where a lot of people are missing the boat. People eat fruit at breakfast, and fruit's good. You can eat fruit. But a lot of fruit will, for most people, just metabolizes into sugar and spikes your insulin and all that shit. What you really need is to get vegetables into your diet as well, because there's so many minerals and micronutrients and all that shit that's way too sciencey for me to really explain and understand. But like, I get it, you know? So incorporating a vegetable into every single meal is something that everyone could do no matter what diet program you're trying to adhere to. And I don't think anyone would have a problem with that. I know a lot of people struggle with how to get vegetables into their breakfast. And then, like, spoiler alert, I'm going to be putting out an e-cookbook later this year. I am planning, whatever. I have a tentative title, but I'm not going to share it with you because I might change it. But basically, it's going to be like mostly clean, plant-based, paleo-inspired recipes, and we'll include breakfast. But one of the things I'm going to do is like show you how to include vegetables into your meal and into every meal that you eat, because it really will make a difference, not only in terms of like your health and the health benefit, but your satiety, how satisfied you are from your meal. So where am I going? Plants. Wonderful plants, plant-based diet. So you can eat meat and still be on a plant-based diet. What needs to shift in your mind is that when you sit down and you think about, what am I going to have for dinner? You don't start with thinking about your meat, you know, or even your protein source for that matter. You need protein at every meal. It is important. But if you make the meal to be about the meat, then you're no longer prioritizing the things on your plate that give you so much additional nutritional benefit. And it's easy to undereat on vegetables because for the most part, people have an idea in their head that vegetables are not delicious. I'm one of them. And I think also a lot of people don't know how to prepare delicious vegetables in a way that they're delicious. They aren't getting enough variety in their vegetables. It's like there are some people who eat asparagus like 8 times a week, you know? Anybody's going to get bored after a while. So understanding your options around vegetables, how to make them taste good, how to make them versatile, how to disguise them so you don't even realize that you're eating them, like that will make it easier to incorporate more vegetables into each meal that you eat. So that's become a much bigger focus for me in the last 7 months or so. It was back in August that I started really making that the focus of my meals. So like one of the things I like to do for breakfast is what I call a breakfast salad. And it's pretty much what it sounds like. I put arugula, like a fuck ton of arugula in a bowl because arugula is delicious. I'm so fucking angry because arugula, I guess it's in between growing seasons or something for arugula. So I haven't seen arugula since 1976. And what that actually translates to is like 4 weeks ago. It's been since like the start of the new year since I've had arugula. And I'm like a fucking junkie. I'm going through withdrawals. I am foaming at the mouth. I have tics that won't go away. It's very frustrating. Today I just bought baby kale because I haven't been eating my breakfast salads, which has put me in a fucking tailspin. So I'm going to try baby kale. I know, oh God, I miss the pepperiness of arugula so badly, but arugula is great. It's just never happening again because, the end is nigh. I love that word, nigh. We don't get to say it enough. A knife. Anyway, what were we talking about? We were saying breakfast vegetables. Okay, so that's one of my favorite ways to get a vegetable in for breakfast. And you can use any green you want. If you're into kale, you can do kale. If you want to do a broccoli slaw, do broccoli slaw. Shit, you can even do cabbage, like a coleslaw style. And then I dump a serving's worth of ground sausage. And, you can talk about the virtuousness of those cured meats and shit. Whatever. I'm not into it. I'm gonna fucking eat my ground sausage. I like it. You could, if you want to do salmon, or you could do chicken from the night before. Like, you have your option of any protein. You could do eggs. I do soft boiled eggs sometimes as well. And then, so you have your vegetable, you have your protein, and then the carbohydrate. So what I kind of call it lazy macros, what I do. I do not have a number of like how many grams of what thing I'm trying to eat in a day. I don't fucking know. It might be helpful, but I am not to be trusted where effort is concerned. I am very unreliable. I can't be trusted to have to do math. I can't do it. But I try to work off of like a visual idea that most of my plate, like half of my plate or my portion, is the vegetable. 25% of my portion of what I'm eating will be protein, and the remaining 25% would be a carbohydrate. And in this case, if you're doing a breakfast salad, I love to do plantains. I make my own plantains. In fact, they're called tostones. That's when the plantain is really green and it's not ripe yet, and that's when they're more like salty, savory, and they're starchy. They're so good with the breakfast. But a lot of people like the sweet plantains when they're more brown, like ripe looking. You can do whatever you want, but that would be my typical breakfast salad. Bunch of arugula, ground sausage, and tostones. And then I make a little quick dressing to get my fat of a little bit of mayo, splash of my almond milk, and a fuck ton of everything but the bagel seasoning. And I just drizzle that shit all over. And that's breakfast, y'all. So no, it's not a sweet like stack of pancakes with blueberries and stuff, but it is delicious and it's filling, and most importantly, I know it's nutritious. I know I'm fueling my body the way that it needs to be fueled. So this is what I mean when I'm like, we've evolved a bit from being what we call paleo to whatever it is we're doing now, which in my mind is very plant-based. With a little of the lazy macros that I'm describing, but still focused on the principles of like what's real food. That's what I really care about. Can I look at my plate and identify what I'm eating? So, that's my take on nutrition. I talked initially about how I feel like I'm fat. Let me come back to that. So I'm saying all this because like I care a lot about what I'm eating. Because as I've gotten older, I'm still very concerned about being fat. I definitely have my insecurities. I feel like I'm thick through my midsection. My thighs are too big. My ass is huge. I kind of like that my ass is big because mostly it's from muscle, you know? Like I feel good about the shape and the feel of my ass. But because my ass is protrudes from the back, it makes it tough if your thighs are also thick. So like I have my issues with my body. But I refuse to starve myself, you know? I understand that you need to create caloric restriction or caloric deficit to actually lose weight. But I'm unwilling to sacrifice my nutrition to do that. That doesn't mean you can't. You can create a caloric deficit and also eat very, you know, in a well-rounded, nutritious way. It absolutely can be done. But I'm still kind of tinkering with what that looks like for me. So in the meantime, what I feel really good about with my diet, and my diet, again, under the definition of like, this is the lifestyle, this is the way I'm eating. What I feel good about is that I'm fueling my body with things that will create long-term health, and allow me to operate the best, most optimum way I can. I gotta say, despite the fact that I'm a fucking stress case and a very unpleasant person to be around most of the time, I actually feel really good. I feel great. I'm just terrible. So I can't help but I know that has a lot to do with the way that I eat and how I fuel my body. I also drink a fuck ton of water. We've talked about that before. You know, I try to drink about at least 100 ounces a day. Better if I can get a gallon. But I drink a lot of water, and I try to eat a diverse diet with a big focus on vegetables. And make sure that I'm getting fat in my diet so that I'm not, you know, hungry and my meals are satisfying. And then also from time to time, I let myself just eat what I fucking want, right? Because I'm trying to be a moderator. But, you know, this is also a bit of the philosophy that we're taking, or this is the philosophy that we're taking into the challenge that I've built for our studio's like 90-day program. So in case I haven't mentioned it before, so I own a Pure Barre studio, and obviously, so it's a fitness studio, and obviously the people that come in are health and fitness minded. So at the start of the year, we launched a 90-day challenge, a 90-day program basically, where each 30 days, so each month, has its own focus area that has to do with wellness and health. And the first month, which we're wrapping up this week, is on your mindset and your mindset and creating goals and getting in the right headspace. Month 2, which starts this weekend, is all about diet and nutrition, and it's rooted in these concepts of eating real food, mostly plants, and not too much. So I'm going to be getting super, super strict in the next few days, which is great because I definitely needed a reason to like get back in the swing of it and take care of myself a little bit better from a nutrition standpoint than I have been over these last couple of weeks. So I'm excited to give that a go and really see if after 30 days of being dedicated to this program, what those changes look like for me. And then the last 30 days of that program have to do with your workouts and your fitness and all that shit. So, so we're doing this program, and I'm excited because I do think that almost everyone, like I said at the start, everyone needs more vegetables in their diet. I am no exception because even though we do include a vegetable at every meal, you know, wouldn't hurt to have more. So that's it. Again, this is a big, meaty topic. There's so many things to discuss, but we're starting at the beginning here because every new beginning comes to some other beginning's end. Yay! I'm a product of I'm a 90s teen. Can't you tell? Like with all these fucking song references today. So that's what I wanted to start with though. We'll come back to this. If you have any questions or certain things you'd like me to discuss here, by all means, let me know because you know at some point I'm going to dry out of ideas and that day is coming quick, I bet. So if you have certain things you want me to talk about or requests for or questions, whatever, I'd love to hear from you. You can find me on Instagram. It's where I'm most active at CupcakesOMG. You can also watch the video of this podcast on YouTube, again, under Cupcakes OMG. And if you enjoyed, or hey, even if you didn't, you can subscribe to this shit, rate us 5 stars, and leave a little rating, or a review. Leave me a review so I know what the hell you are saying and why. But I think that'll take care of us today, kids. So, until next time, that's right, bitches. Goodbye.